All right, we went through that kind of fast. I hope, and hope is a bad word because it means that I've lost the control of the situation. I'm hoping that you gleaned some information from this and at least learned a little something. I guess if we have to walk away with two things that I didn't discuss that are very important, on the back of the magneto is a wire. The wire is called a P-lead. And if the wire is off, the magneto is live and on. And if it's got an impulse coupling and you pull the prop through at this speed, it will spark. And it can start. You don't have to do some big, pulling it through thing. Barely moving it. If it sparks and there's fuel in there, it'll bite you. I have taken people to the emergency room that were bitten by a propeller. It's not good. And don't get blood in my car. That pissed me off.
So would you suggest using jumper lead just as a precaution?
I do, actually. Number one, never leave a key in the ignition system. That's how my friend got hurt really bad. It was a plane. He was just pre-flighting it. Got the door open, got the key, stick it in the ignition, accidentally bumped it, or just muscle memory, just twisted it for something. He turned the mag on. Then he went out to pull the propeller through a couple times, and about the third or fourth time it started and got his hand real bad. Had to have made several surgeries to get it sort of working. Don't leave the key in. As a matter of principle, mechanics, when we shut down an engine, we pull the mixture back. It's kind of dangerous because we're pulling the mixture and leaving the key in the on position. You have to remember, key off, take it out, you put it up on the instrument panel where everybody working on it can constantly see the key while you're working on it. So just common practice. Okay, so I wanted to mention that. P-lead means if the P-lead is if the P-lead is off, the magneto is on. It's that wire turns it off. So yes, as a safety measure, take your alligator clips, clip it to that, clip it to something, just shut it off. Because maybe the switch is bad. There were some ADs on switches. Let me see. Oops. 10 pages. Let me see. There's one thing I wanted to do. Ignition harness. Oh, yeah. So, how many times does the distributor, this part back here, have to go around to fire all of the cylinders? Once. Goes around one time. Fires this one, then that one, then that one, then that one, then that one, and that one. One time around, fires all the cylinders. How many times does the engine have to go around to fire all of the cylinders? Twice. Doesn't matter how many cylinders there are. Magneto distributor goes around once. Engine goes around twice. How many degrees is that? 720. If I have two magnetos on the back of the engine, one has an impulse and one does not, and I pull the propeller through very, very slowly, which one would fire first if it were to fire very slowly? The impulsed or not impulsed?
Not impulsed.
He says not impulsed. How come?
Because the one with the impulse will fire later.
Give this man a piece of candy or something. As you pull the prop through and you get closer and closer, and let's say they're supposed to fire at 25 degrees at top dead center, you pull, lights come on this one because it has no impulse and it's ready to fire. This one won't do anything because as the impulse coupling is engaged and it's keeping it from moving, and this one's not going to fire until top 25, top dead center. Actually, impulse couplings are degree specific, so if it's 20, they're actually made that way. So if you have an engine that runs on 30, it's got a 30-degree impulse on it. If it's 25, it's 25. So remember that. It's like on the test. What's the firing order of a magneto? Firing order of a magneto. 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And sometimes 5 and 6, and sometimes 7, 8, and 9. What I'm saying is the firing order, if this is 1, then and this is a right-hand magneto, the firing order is that one goes next, and that one, and that one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, where they go to the cylinders is a whole nother issue. But the firing order is always 1, 2, 3. That's firing order of a magneto. If I have a left-hand rotating magneto on the right side of the engine, which pinhole do I use? The left does not matter which side it goes on. It's the rotation. Okay. Have what?
Shade, shadow.
There's no hole for it.
That's an R. Is it right here?
One on the right shadow.
Yeah, it's like that.
Is that just a embossed thing?
Oh, okay. Here it looks like it might be
There's
on
shadow on
the right hand side.
Got it, yeah, I see.
Wait, on the right?
Yeah.
Here?
No,
Yeah.
other side.
it.
Here?
Oh,
Right
there
there.
you go.
That says M3619.
Oh,
Oh,
We
it's
can't
a-
see, tell
just
that.
the shadow.
We just see the shadow cutting it off and
Yeah,
making
turn
it
up
look
the
like
lights
an
to see
L.
it.
Oh, it really does.
So
M36. Come on, Suzanne. All right. What does M3619 stand for? Everybody should know this. I'm just kidding. Who knows? It's part number. All right. Induction systems. Very briefly. Larry's going to cover induction systems. I don't think I have anything really important that we have to go over. Components. Well, first thing you're going to get in an induction system is the air filter. We call it air cleaner. Going into the air box. Anything to say about the air box? Said I'm not going to write this. So the air cleaner. Air inlet designed to allow ram air from airstream and hang on, let me see if I got pictures. Yeah, we don't need to worry too much about that. So, air box. This is for a carbureted engine. I know that because it has this over here, which is a carburetor heat. So this box acts as both the fresh air and carburetor heat. When you have it in the cold air operation, there is a flapper valve. It's going to kind of go like that in there so that the air, we need blue. Air comes in, hits a flapper valve, and goes up. But when we want carburetor heat, meanwhile, hot air from the heating system is coming in here, going here, and going out. There's a hole in the bottom of it. So you have hot air going that way. When we want the hot air, the flapper valve goes this way, and the hot air comes through that pipe, goes around, and goes out that way. Adding heat to the carburetor to do what?
de-ice
De-ice.
and run real rough.
And run rich. Okay. See, air inlet, air filter. We don't need to know that. Air box. Things you don't know. So, this is the paper pleated filter. A lot of airplanes came with that. And you probably recognize that one as, looks K&N-ish. But this is probably, in my opinion, like one of the number one STCs for aircraft is to get a bracket air filter assembly. And they're not expensive, but it is a supplement to the type certificate, and it comes with this frame. It's a nice frame, welded nice, and you get this nasty, sticky piece of foam. And I don't know what kind of stuff they put on there, but when people come and like, hey, can I help you do your annual? Yeah, why don't you change out the bracket air filter for me? Because I hate doing it because they're so sticky. Anyway, it's just a sticky element, and you pull out the bag and you put it in there, and it says right there on the bottom, every 12 months, regardless of hours used, and at the hourly interval of use as stated on the service instructions, you shall replace it. So, and if it's dusty or dirty, change it more often. Squeeze or blot, dry clean cloth, excess.
The sticky part's like around the.
No, the whole thing is sticky. It's just it's got a sticky oil. So it's a piece of foam with sticky oil. And I guess I'm telling you all that because, it's just one of those things where this filter, what are they, like $7, $10? It's sick. Do you guys have one?
Yeah.
They're so dirt stinking cheap. I order them by, a bunch of them.
I didn't realize that brackets came for that.
Oh, yeah, with 2 T's, right? Bracket, yeah, 2 T's. So, God, the first job I ever had, it was like, they would have me take it out, wash it off in gasoline, then blow it dry, and then dry it. And then we had some AMSOIL, air filter oil, and you had to put that on. Then you had to squeeze it, then you had to dry it. And then, so, a good hour. Number one, it violates the STC. Number two, I just spent an hour on a $7 part. Back then, they're probably $3. It's like, yeah, I don't know, bad business.
Which one, in your opinion, runs the best?
I like the bracket. I have one on my airplane, and that's exactly what I want. I don't want this paper, and I don't want a K&N. I don't like K&N. They made me mad. So I like these bracket. You just open up the bag, open up this gold piece right here, take out the old one, you throw it away. There's a grate that goes across here with 2 screws. Stick the new one in, you're done. Throw the old one away. Do it every annual. All right, let's talk about exhaust. Let me see. Do not clean and reuse. Airbox, fire ultimate heat, carburetor. Yeah, we'll get to that. Where's the carburetor heat come from? That's what this is. This is the Lycoming version.
Heat stove.
Yeah, little heat stove. So this is the exhaust right here. It just has, that's hot. When you turn on the carb heat, air flows across this into this hose right here and off into the carburetor. Some aircraft have something that look like this. That's the inside of it right there. So it just has a shroud, and all these little things get red hot from the exhaust. And you take air and you have fresh air coming in, blows across it. One of these will go up to the carburetor heat. The other one goes into the cabin. So imagine what happens if you have a crack right here.
Now you get carbon monoxide.
Carbon dioxide and everybody dies. These hoses are called scat or skeet hoses. It depends on exactly what kind it is. There's several different kinds. I can never remember. I just call it scat tube. But I think this is scat. I believe skeet has another inner liner to it, so you can't see this right here. My takeaway from this one is don't ever Google scat tube. People are freaking nasty out there. Like, what the?
Hey, what's going on, Bobby?
There are things you cannot unsee.
That's why you put scat aviation.
I'm afraid to do it. But right now, there's probably, 30 people are going to,
Yeah.
James is already back there doing it. Tell by the look on his face. All right.
I think there's like a third one also now.
Yeah, there it is too. Exhaust systems, some of the older little Continentals, yeah, just straight stacks. If you look inside there, that's just the shroud that goes around it. That tube just comes around like this and out, and this one catches into that one, and they're loud and obnoxious. That's just not much different. We don't really have mufflers in aviation. Sure, you have a thing that looks like a muffler. All it has in it, if it has anything, is a cone with a bunch of holes drilled in it like that. That's usually about it. The spark arrestor is what it is. So as far as exhaust systems, yeah, we've got what I call more or less the straight stack. Sometimes you just have a straight one coming off each cylinder. This is a collectors on one side. I wouldn't call that a collector side. We have exhaust systems, full systems, which is typical of most modern aircraft. And then we have, this is technically called the collector system. Like I said, Larry's going to go more into this, but radial engines have collectors. And if you walk up to them when they're cold and you kind of grab it, the whole thing is loose and feels like it's falling apart. It's attached securely to the cylinder with 4 nuts, but all of these slip joints are horribly, horribly loose. And the reason why is because as it heats up, it has to expand. And so if you had a collector that was all welded together, it would just crack every time the engine heated up and grew and shrunk. If you walk up to it and grab it when it's really hot, you'll just burn yourself, so don't do that. But it would be tight. And let me say, modified exhaust system. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that these V-band clamps cause these accidents. These things are deadly as hell. We're going to be talking about turbocharged exhaust systems, which are now operating under quite a bit of back pressure because they're going to go into the turbo and cause back pressure. And a lot of them are held together with these V-band clamps, where you have a flange and then this band goes over the flange and you tighten that nut and it tightens it together. And it's one of those things you don't know what it is you don't know until something like that happens. You're, ooh, I should have known that. But the directions for putting these things on are rather goofy. It is like put it on and torque it to a certain number, then bang on it with a hammer, retorque it, you take it out, you run it to temperature, bring it back in, retorque, rehit it with the hammer, you do it again and again and again until it doesn't move.
Yep.
It takes a long time.
Sounds about right.
Okay. And for those people who just,
And then Sigmar the shit out of it.
yeah, use the TLAR method. Have you heard about that? That looks about right.
Oh.
That's what you're going to get up here. No.
So is that to say it's easy to over torque it, over tighten it?
I would say no, it's hard to tighten it.
They're really hard to tighten.
They're really hard to tighten because you can skip right over that flange and it'll just crush it.
So
And
again,
it looks
Misplacement.
for those people who look at the torque and get a calibrated torque wrench that was just calibrated by NASA's top engineers,
Yeah.
guaranteed to be 100% dead balls accurate, and you walk up there and you torque it, and then you get 5 other people to torque it, and you take it off and fly it, you get the picture with the fire.
Yeah.
Because
You missed it.
Misplaced.
you didn't do it 5 times. You torque it, you run the engine. You torque it, you run the engine. You torque it, you run the engine until it no longer moves every time you do it. You have to run the engine and heat it up and run it through a cycle and then torque it.
Okay.
If you do it one time, you get to go to a funeral. Now the upside, not to be really dark about this, you will save some money on the cremation because you've burned the people alive.
It may not be anything.
Mechanic / pallbearer.
That's good. Well, that's the yeah.
So my point is, don't screw around with these things.
And they're, especially once you get into bigger stuff, they're everywhere.
Yeah. Exhaust systems kill people. They are the most deadly thing on an aircraft. You're either going to get a small crack and get carbon monoxide poisoning and kill everybody, or you get one of these things that causes what it causes when they come off, you get a blowtorch inside the engine. It goes right, it finds a fuel line, burns through the fuel line, you have fuel spraying on a hot exhaust system, starts a fire they can't put out, everybody dies in flight, they burn to death. And that is horrific. Every pilot lives in fear of that.
Being caught on fire on the way down.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete caught on fire anywhere.
Yeah, but you can't get out of an airplane. You guys have fire extinguishers in your airplane? Yeah, I got one. Yeah, I'm like, I was worried. I got a Halon fire extinguisher. I usually wear, long pants, boots, even when it's hot out. I'm like, why are you wearing that? I just live in fear. Yeah.
Ease of mind is what that is.
Yeah.
The
So,
fire extinguisher is for the people, not the airplane.
yeah. So I'm dead serious about this. You don't exhaust kills people. It was the FAA every year with the AMT awards does this is our number one thing. Lately they've been really focusing in on human factors, fatigue and attitudes. But right before that, it was exhaust systems. That was our number one thing, was exhaust systems. Like, hey, mechanics just aren't taking these things serious. It's like just an afterthought. Just bolt it on. Just put the V-band clamp on. Just don't worry about it. Worry about it. Since we're talking about exhaust, we can talk about exhaust gaskets. Again, this is for you to be writing stuff down because I'm not. Doesn't mean that it isn't important. I just don't want to write all this down. there's two different types. These, in my mind, are the better, expensive ones. We call them no-blow gaskets. They're very thick, steel with this is spiral wound right in here, this area right here. And those are the ones that are going to cost you some money, a couple bucks a piece. But if you order a gasket set, you're going to get these cheap little things over here. And it's funny because I don't think I have a good picture of one. Should have just brought one in. Yeah. If you look at the side profile, the solid or beaded one here, this gold colored one, it's just a flat piece of metal. It's got a little bead on it. I mean, it's even hollow on the inside like that. That's that little bead right there. You see it right there? Got a little bead. And so if you have a gasket set for a 4-cylinder engine, you're going to get 8 of those. So 4 to put on and 4 in case you make a mistake. Now you got to put 2 on. So when they first came out, I was like, wow. I asked somebody, how do these go? Oh, it's real simple. You put them this way. And you put some RT red high temp silicone in here.
Oh,
You do? Okay. That wasn't right. There's only one place I've ever seen the directions for installing these. And I want to say it's in like Lycoming Tips and Tricks. They're interlocking. So, oh, it says that interlocked. Bead goes towards exhaust, a smooth side towards cylinder. Retorque on. Oh, look at that. It is Lycoming Tech Tips. It's the only place I've ever seen that information, ever. So, is Lycoming Tech Tips approved data? No. Nope. But it's the only place I've ever seen the directions. So what's your takeaway on that? If you ever put one of these together and you can't remember, call somebody. Hey, Kevin, what was that book you said? I'll say Lycoming Tech Tips. Tech Tip. Jeez. All right, enough vodka for me. All right, let's see. I even wrote that in my note. Note, do not Google scat tube. So exhaust systems, a scavenging system that collects and disposes of high temperature poisonous gas. Contains carbon monoxide, which is poison, are hot and can cause a fire. They're made out of corrosion resistant steel, which is usually nickel or Manel, possibly ceramic coated. Do not weld repair in the field unless you know the base metal, otherwise you're introducing bad metals to it. We had the short stack, we had the collector on radials, they had the slip joints, keeps them expanding. Maintenance. Consider an exhaust failure a potential life-threatening event because exhaust gases in the cockpit will kill you. Hot gases leaking can cause fires. Yeah, Larry's going to cover this, so I'm backing off a little bit. Inspect under heat shrouds at least every 100 hours of the annual. What I'm talking about is, I want to make sure you can't hear this too many times. The shroud right here, see it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 little screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all it is. You take those 4 little screws out, it opens up, and it's just 4 screws. Take it off. Inspect under there. Every year I take my vacuum cleaner or some shop air. That high volume's better. I just use the vacuum cleaner, put it on the blow part, shove it up the exhaust, pack rags around it, turn it on. Soap and water, pressurize the exhaust, and I take a big thing of soap and water, and I will spend 10 minutes looking at it. Spray everything. Spray a known spot where there's a leak. There should be a small leak where the exhaust temperature probes go in. I will, if I don't get a leak there, I didn't do something right. So I'll get a known leak. I will spray. I will look. I will inspect. I'll look again because exhaust gas will kill you.
Do it in a tight confined room.
All right. used compressed air, 2 psi, soap, check welds. Internal, Larry will go into it, but there's also baffles inside there. There's spark arresters. If they break off, they can block an opening. V-band clamp, talked about that. Never used galvanized or zinc-plated tools or lead pencils on exhaust. Never used lead pencils, which is really graphite, zinc or, what did I say? Galvanized or zinc-plated tools or pencils on exhaust.
What do they have that is galvanized or zinc-plated?
I don't know. But it interferes with the base metal of the exhaust system and cause cracking, so they say.
Same thing with turbines.
With what?
Same thing with turbines.
Turbines.
Yeah, we're talking.
Oh yeah, of course, because it's the same, yeah.
No carbon.
All right. See, installation, always install per manufacturer instructions. Install and operate the engine to temperature, retorque. You stretching or question?
I'm stretching.
Okay, he stretches a lot.
Mm.
Retorque and rerun, retorque and rerun, retorque and rerun until it is all tight, until it doesn't move anymore. What kind of nuts do you use on exhaust?
Brass, high temp.
Brass. High temp. Not the high temp, but the high temp. Right? Remember that?
Yeah.
Not CAD plated. I'm glad somebody listened to my whole lecture because I worry about that. All right, we got ice, which carb heater takes care of. All right. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's talk about turbocharging and supercharging. Turbocharging. Well, right off the bat, we got a problem. And the problem is the use of these words. What's that about? In automotive, a turbocharger is something that runs off exhaust gas, correct?
Correct.
And a supercharger is something that runs off of a belt drive typically or a gear drive.
Correct.
Okay.
It's instant.
Yes. In aviation, the terms kind of go like that.
Awesome.
Sometimes they'll say turbo, and they're always going to mean a turbo, something that runs off exhaust gas. Sometimes they'll mean turbo supercharging, but the word turbo is used in there. Therefore, it means that there is a turbo. So anytime you see the word turbo, it's turbo. So we're good with that. So there's turbocharging, turbo supercharging. It's just turbo. Occasionally, the term supercharging is used, and they don't mean a belt-driven roots type blower. They mean a turbocharger that is bringing the manifold pressure above atmospheric. So I'll try and keep things like just keep in mind that sometimes supercharging means something a little different. But I try and use it just like you would in automotive, where turbos exhaust, supercharging is belt-driven. So try and keep it that way. Well, why do we do this? Well, because why?
I was gonna say compensate for air.
Absolutely, compensate for altitude. So in automobiles, well, we're getting more and more into supercharging. I think that has more and more to do with just trying to get the cubic inches, or not inches anymore, the displacement, yes, exactly, down and bring up the horsepower by using a turbocharger because of weight and everything else. So you can make things smaller and smaller. I don't know. My soapbox. I'm not really sold to the whole turbocharging a car thing because it's like one more thing to freaking break. I don't need that to happen. But I guess they're pretty reliable, aren't they?
Early stuff was terrible.
I'm just one of those guys that never forgets. Never forgive you for. So anyway, in aircraft we have another issue. Of course, weight is an issue, but we're adding complexity and we're adding weight when we turbocharge something. But we want to go high and we want to go fast. wouldn't make a lot of sense to put a turbocharger on a little Cub or something where people never go past 2,000 feet. So, but we want to go up, want to go high, go fast. I don't know, it's like some sort of light bulb came on to me as a private pilot when I was going back with my airplane, my 182, to go to see my son in Arkansas. So this was very long cross country. And so, I grabbed a CFI who was working at the company. I said, hey, what kind of advice you have for me? He goes, oh man, 182, get up there, get as high as you can. He goes, you should be between 10 and 12,000 feet for the whole way. Why? And he said, well, think about it. He goes, the higher you go, the less air there is, so there's less drag on your airframe. He wasn't quite this helpful. I had to kind of put it all together. Less drag on the airframe, but I'm going to get a lot less horsepower, but I've got the constant speed prop that's going to twist and take a bigger bite out of what little air is left. So I go up high, less air means I need less fuel, less pressure on the airframe, so it's going to go fast, or at least as fast, with a lot less fuel. So it's going to go the same speed, a lot less fuel, and I can do that because the props can take a bigger bite. So the prop's going to compensate for the lack of atmosphere. The engine's going to run 65% power, 60%, but I just don't have as much air, so I don't need as much fuel. Everything works out fine. So go high, go fast. Now, if we take that and we do it again, but this time I've got a turbocharged 182, the airframe is getting a lot less drag because it's, there's not a lot of air up there. But now you got a turbo feeding the engine. The engine's going, this is great. I guess I'm still at sea level. I don't know. And so now I got my power back, and the prop's going to do its thing. So you're going to get more power, go a little bit faster, or at least climb to that altitude much faster. So
The props will be taking that big chunk.
yeah, yep, still got to do that. Turbocharging also allows us to do pressurized cabins, because that's where we're going to get the pressure for the cabin. So if we're on a pressurized aircraft, every pressurized general aviation aircraft has a turbocharger. Otherwise, you're just not going to pressurize it.
At what size did they start pressurizing cabins? Because 182s don't typically have.
Nope, they never made a P182, P210s. So 210s, I think, are the
210s and getting.
Yep.
their-
yeah, but you don't have to. So it's a P210.
Right.
So pressurized 210. Then there's non-pressurized 210. Skymasters came pressurized. 210's just one step bigger than a 182. So they look like a 182 with retractable gear.
At what altitude do you need to start
And
pressurizing?
turboprop.
Oh, what altitude do you want to start pressurizing? For your cabin, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, the rules are unpressurized, you can go to 12.5 without oxygen. After 12.5, you can go for 30 minutes, but you got to come back down. But you can never go past 14. So you're stuck at 12.5 unless you have oxygen. Then you can squeak up to 14 for 30 minutes. You got to come back down. Unless you're a passenger, then I must offer it to you after 15, but you don't have to take it. We don't care.
You can go to sleep.
It has to be offered. That's
You can go to sleep at any time.
so if you pressurize the cabin and your cabin altitude is now at 8,000 feet and you're way up higher, then you don't have to have oxygen. And by the way, for what it's worth, I bought an oxygen system for my airplane when I went to somewhere, I think Boston or something. I wanted to bring it. Oh man, did I feel great. So now it's a rule. If I'm going to hit
That's
10,
pure oxygen, man.
yeah, but I'm only like a little cannula at like 2-3 liters a minute.
It's still pure oxygen.
Oh, you feel so good. Man, I was like, pff,
That's reduced comfort.
yeah.
I used to sit on the airplanes after a long weekend.
Oh, yeah. See, who's my ambulance driving buddy in here? You did.
No.
Huh? Yeah, there's somebody else in here. Who drove ambulance in here? Somebody. That's it. See, I was.
No, I didn't drive anything.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, we had a lot of oxygen on board there. So. NIVs, so you can really take care of your long weekend.
Still have oxygen bars?
Yep. Okay. So we got to. There's really good reasons why we want to turbocharge. A lot of airplanes have them, so we need to learn about them. And why are we going to do this? Well, let's just review a little bit with air and density. All right, so review. Boy, this is really. Oh, we'll just go with what my notes say. The seal level pressure. It's not seal, it's C. Yeah, the seal level. It's related to the squirrel chamber. Sea level pressure on a standard day. Standard day. What do we got? 29.92 or 14.7 psi. So we can round that up to 30 inches. Just we don't have to say 29.92. We'll save some time and we will see world. All right, I believe there is a test question that talks about Boyle's law. Named after?
Mr. Law.
Boiling water.
He's almost got it. Dr. Albert Law. All right. In a sample of gas, the volume is inversely proportional to the absolute pressure if the temperature is kept constant. If temp is kept constant. And I actually wrote there, it's okay if you want to skip this part, but I don't think I can skip it because if a container of enclosed gas is doubled in size while the temperature is held constant, the pressure will be. So in any sample of gas, the volume is inversely proportional to the absolute pressure if the temperature is kept constant, which is to say that if we have a confined container of gas, and the temperature doesn't change, if we double the volume, the pressure will be 1/2. If we half the size of the container, then the pressure is doubled. And there was probably some reason why I really wanted to do this at one point. At 13 cubic feet of air at 14.7 psi weighs 1 pound. At 10 psi, you need 15 cubic air to equal 1 pound. We don't need to cover that. All right. That's on the test. Sorry. Otherwise, I would have just skipped it. If a container of enclosed gas is doubled in size while the temperature is held constant, the pressure will be cut in half.
Is the 13.7 on the test too?
Is 13.7?
Yeah, the weight, 13.7.
No. I wouldn't do that. It's 14.7. C. As altitude increases, pressure and density do what? Pressure and density decrease. They sure do. And this, you don't have to write this, but I think it's pretty cool as an example. So at sea level, we're going to get 100% power out of an engine. Let's consider the Pratt & Whitney. This is a terrible example because a Pratt & Whitney has an internal supercharger. But let's just say it didn't. So maybe we'll just get rid of the whole Pratt & Whitney thing and we'll say some engine, which is not the Pratt & Whitney, that has 450 horsepower at sea level, and not the Pratt & Whitney 985 because it has an internal supercharger.
I didn't know they made low lead engines. recip engines. Pratt & Whitney?
Yeah?
I didn't know they made those.
Oh, recip engines?
Yeah.
They're the originals, man. They're the OG.
This
Now they just make lawnmowers, right?
Yeah. What was it? Almost every radial engine, except for a few, there's some few smaller ones. Continental Lycoming made some small ones. Lycom made a huge one. And then Wright made some. I think all the rest are Pratt & Whitney. That big tall one we have in there with the prop, that Pratt & Whitney. So, all right, sea level, 100% power. So we have some engine that makes 450 horsepower there at sea level. Well, at 10,000 feet, flight level 100, it's only going to get 75% power. This is not on the test, which would be 337.5 horsepowers, which is a loss of, you've lost 102.5 horsepower at 10,000 feet. You've lost 25%. At 20,000 feet, you are down to 50% power. And you're only left with half 450. Let me see, it'd be 225 horsepower. So you can see how you really start losing it if you could manage to make it to 30,000 feet. Just the pure lack of atmosphere, you're down to 33%, which is only 148 horsepower. And if you could make it all the way to 40,000 feet, you would be on an IFR clearance, by the way. You're down to 25%, which would be 115.5 horsepower. So not that that's very realistic, because most recip engines are going to be in this area.
Yeah, I was about to say.
However, if you're not, normally aspirated, you're not going much more than right about there. At 18,000 feet, if you don't know, you have to be on an IFR clearance anyway. So, but you have a 421 or something like that, a cabin class piston twin, you're going to be up there. I would. What's that?
Yeah, I forgot. But, like, Cessna 340s.
Yeah. Malibu, I would imagine.
Yeah, Malibu.
I'd go up there. All right. Heat has the opposite effect. Heat. We'll just call it heat, because the opposite of what? I don't know. Heat. I don't think we need to write this. Charles Law. Named after? It's getting old, huh? Dr. Albert Law. If a temperature of a given quantity of gas is raised and the pressure is held constant, the gas will expand in proportion to the absolute pressure, which is to say that as air heats up, it expands. That's not Charles' law. That's what he's saying. He says if a temperature of a given quantity of gas, a known quantity, if that temperature of that known quantity is raised, you heat it up, but you don't let the pressure change, because you have you heat it up. So now you've got to enlarge the container. He is saying the pressure is constant, the gas will expand in proportion to the temperature. So the gas will expand in proportion to the heat that you apply it to, which is to say, as air heats up, it expands. The molecules get further and further apart. All right. Oh, I put that. In other words, hot air will expand, but the weight remains the same. So we have that volume of gas that was held constant. We heated it up, but we didn't want the pressure to go anywhere, so we had to make the container larger. So the pressure stayed the same. Because we heated it up, the weight stayed the same. It's still the same weight of air. So now it's just taking up more space, but it's the same weight, which is what we get around here on a very hot day. That's why your engine thinks it's much higher in altitude, why we can get a 3,000 foot density altitude here at 75 feet, because the air has expanded and it takes this much air to make 1 cubic foot of air. Oh, that's terrible. To weigh the same as this on a cold day. So this weighs the same as this on a cold day. So it takes a lot more of this to go through the engine to get power. That's why we get a loss of power in RPM when we pull carb heat on. Hot air comes in. The air is less dense. So it doesn't weigh as much, but the carburetor is still injecting the same amount of fuel because it doesn't know any different. So it starts to run rich, and we didn't get as much air, so we start losing power. Now this is an important point because as we talk about turbocharging, we're going to be talking about an air compressor that is compressing air to shove into the engine. And what happens to air when you compress it? It gets hot. So when air is compressed, it gets hot. If you don't believe me, let me know. I'll take you out to our air compressor and let you grab onto one of the cylinders on there. They're very hot. Excessive heat, or just heat really, heat from turbo compression, or any kind of compression, turbo or supercharger. Supercharger compression is not desirable. As that air gets hot, it's less dense, so we have to have more of it. So you can kind of get into this problem where it's hot, so we need more, so we compress more, so it gets hotter, so you need more, and so it's going to end up to be a point where it's kind of diminishing returns, and you start getting into problems shoving hot air into an exhaust system with gas. You can light off the fuel prematurely. So the heat, we could say, lowers turbo effectiveness. If it gets hot enough, it can cause detonation. Because at 500 degrees F, the fuel-air mixture will burn or light off, ignite. What's that? I call it a flashpoint, yeah.